The type of machine I use, the old chain stitch embroidery machines, as you're embroidering, it's like painting with thread. You know, you're sitting at the machine, filling in and, you know, making decisions in the moment. You can kind of manipulate the machine to have a directional stitch and then change the direction so the way the light hits it, even though you're just using like one color, you're getting a lot of depth and a lot of texture just in that light color field. My name is Jerry Lee Atwood, and I'm a fashion designer and tailor for Union Western Clothing Company here in Indianapolis, Indiana. When I discovered embroidery and then, you know, putting embroidery on clothing, then putting that on a person, it's like a person becomes like this walking canvas. Like, I feel like I've been pretty lucky to make a lot of suits for a lot of celebrities. You know, Malone, Lil Nas X, Orville Peck, Diplo, most recently Mathew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. You know, every once in a while, I'll go to like the Old Town Road video, just that, you know, like how many people have seen it now, you know? Going from like when I started making Western wear and thinking like, if I'm lucky, maybe a small band from Indianapolis will wear my stuff on tour and be seen in front of like, you know, a couple hundred people at a show every night. From like that mindset to, oh, something I've made has been seen by like hundreds of millions, potentially over 1 billion people, kind of just blows my mind. I was an art school dropout and ended up working in coffee shops. I don't know, I just got this idea to make Western shirts, and I borrowed my roommate's sewing machine and made a really horrific Western shirt. So it kind of brought back a lot of nostalgia. My dad had all these old country albums that had, you know, people in their Western suits on the covers. Embroidery and rhinestones and the arrow pockets. That really kind of came to prominence in the late 40s, early 50s with tailors like Nudie, Rodeo Ben, and Nathan Turk. The term that most people use is nudie suit. Nudie was the most well-known. He brought it into pop culture. The country musicians in the 50s and 60s. And so if you're somebody like Porter Wagner or Webb Pierce and you were playing in a small town in Oklahoma or Indiana or wherever, you're bringing the glitz and glamour to them. And it's, I think, was a way of paying respect to your audience. Generally, a customer will come to me with an idea and motifs that they want on the suit. So I'll work on some sketches inspired by their ideas. So right now I'm making this suit. This is a customer who's getting married. You know, he likes these vintage guitars. I think he has a collection of guitars. This is the perfect example of working with the customer and kicking ideas back and forth, coming up with like a really strong vision for the direction of the suit. I'll draft up a mock-up suit, and then I go to the machine, embroider everything, which, you know, is a days-long process. We'll rhinestone everything, and then you know, do all the tailoring, like Starry today is doing some pad stitching. The suit gets sewn together and finished and sent out to the customer. From cutting to finishing, just the actual work on a suit is about 120 hours. Usually I have, you know, a month or so from when I start a suit to when I need to send it out. It's not a long window to do a lot of work. You know, my canned answer is always the next suit I make is my favorite. But of things that I've actually made, a Stranger Things suit, far and away like my favorite suit that I've made. I mean, it's just really, really densely embroidered and has a lot of rhinestones. I remember watching Stranger Things and thinking of like, if I made a suit, a Stranger Things suit, how I would incorporate like some of these different themes and images in the show. My own suit that I made is that the Indiana suit. So it has the corn and the carnation and a cow in a field with a tornado in the background. Country music was always kind of like the lame music that my dad listened to. So it's kind of interesting to see like this thing that was so closely associated with country musicians kind of rise to prominence in our modern, somewhat polarized society, in American society. These suits are becoming popular again and being worn by like many different types of people, you know, not just country musicians, but like hip hop artists, you know, sports people, actors, you know, all sorts of people. People from across, you know, political and cultural backgrounds can kind of come together in an appreciation of this art form.